All right, well, we are live, guys, man. I'm so excited that you've all jumped on with us for this time for Lead E3, where we're just talking to each other about ministry. And so let's start. Andy, why don't you go first and just introduce yourself? And then you guys can just jump in and interrupt each other a little bit. Introduce yourself and what you do.
Great. Well, thanks, Frank, for having us here. It's exciting to hang out with all these great kids ministry minds. My name's Andy Kirk. I'm from Australia. For those watching it all around the world differently, you're trying to pick up the accent. I'm the National Director for Kids Ministry over here within our movement, which is the Australian Christian Churches. And it's just a collective group of churches where I oversee a lot of training throughout our states, and our national conference is Kid Shaper, which happens each year. So we've got just some great churches over here in Australia that partner into this ministry, and a couple of the guys here. So I'll flick over to them. That was a nice transition. That's what I major in. Transitions. Nathan.
You majoring in transitions, Andy, is a very, very big understatement. You are the guru of transitions. I'm Nathan McLean, children's pastor here at Hillsong Church for Australia. So my role is over all the campuses and all the leadership and pastoral side of Hillsong Kids in Australia, and I work hand in hand, quite literally most of the time, with my partner in crime, David Wakely.
Hold my hand, Nathan.
That was another segue.
Yeah.
You're going to hold my hand there, right there. So I work closely with, there it is, that's beautiful. I work closely with Nathan over here in Australia at Hillsong Church. And my role is working with Nathan closely, but also overseeing Hillsong Kids Creative Directive Lead, which means overseeing all of our projects and all of the creative side of what Hillsong Kids does, including praise and worship and all the stuff that involves the weekend, leading the whole creative team here at Hillsong Kids, and making sure that we're going forward, moving forward, doing great things and connecting with our kids creatively. On to the next segue. I don't know who to throw it to. I should throw it to Alison. Off you go.
Okay, so I'm Allison Evans. Thank you so much, Frank, for letting me be a part of this. I am the Next Gen team leader at LifeChurch.tv. We're based in Edmond, Oklahoma. We currently have 18 locations, going on 22, and it's just amazing to be a part of what it is that God's doing across the globe in kids ministry and in Next Gen ministry in general. So I'm super pumped about these conversations that we're going to be having. Terry?
Hey, I'm Sherry Duffy, and I work at New Spring Church in Anderson, South Carolina. I'm also old and cannot do all these techie things like a lower third on my screen. But anyway, I oversee kids ministry at New Spring and work with, we have 10 campuses that are launching. Our 10th campus launches in a few weeks, and then also help our team who writes our curriculum. So I'm just so honored to be with you guys. You are all so great.
Awesome. And so I'm Frank Beeler. I'm the family pastor at Elevation. I oversee our 10 locations, soon to be 1 million locations. I don't know. It's fun.
That's sequential.
And the curriculum that we create here for kids ministry. And so I tend to lean toward the creative side a lot just because I enjoy it. But week in, week out, I'll be at one of our campuses and we'll be having fun. And so as you can see, we've got amazing leaders here together just to talk. And our goal is to have a conversation that some of you will get to listen into in the future and hopefully learn from and apply in your context. But we're just going to talk through some things. And Andy Kirk, I mean, with a title like National Director, this guy has to have wisdom. And so he's come up with 3 questions that we're going to talk about today. Andy, tell us where those questions came from and introduce the first one.
Okay, well, Frank has done, as these Google Hangouts have been fantastic. I've used Frank and Dave and Nathan have come in to do a whole lot of different training throughout regional Australia, which is great. So to have this level together is just amazing. So I thought I needed 3 amazing questions from probably, from a genius. So I've gone with Matthew McConaughey's Oscars speech. It was inspiring. He thanked God, so it must have been Christian. So his questions.
That's a stretch.
His questions were, well, Okay, let's move on. Okay, but he had three good questions, and I thought they were thought provoking. So I want to ask everyone. I'm gonna say them all, and then we'll focus on the first one. So these are the three questions he said that he challenges himself each day. Who do you look up to? What are you looking forward to, and what are you chasing? And I like those three questions, and I think in the context of ministry, sometimes we can get very ministry focused, and especially the second one. What are you looking forward to personally? But we're going to start with the first one. I'd love to know who inspires you, who has inspired you throughout life, or who do you look up to? Is the question. So I'd love to hear that. Who do you look up to in life, guys? I'm gonna throw it directly at someone. Who do you look up to, David Wakely?
Oh, first up. Oh, that's great. Good questions, Andy. Thanks, Matthew McConaughey.
Yes.
I think it's a good question. I'm thinking about a couple of things in my brain area. I remember growing up in the church. Grew up in a church Christian family, and the people I always looked up to were the ones that I perceived as spiritual. Is the ones that would pray the most, talk the most spiritually, and there's that kind of aura of learnedness or something like that. And over time, as you get old, as we all are now, compared to when I was 12 or 13, you realize that sometimes the people who seem the most spiritual ends up being on the outside, and then as time displays what's really inside them, you realize that it's not necessarily something that was going on in their heart. It's something that they were kind of showing on the outside. And so for me now, it's you learn to kind of look up to people who just stick with it, who just keep turning up, who just keep doing what they believe God has called them to do. And I love people who have longevity. I really look up to now people who just, obviously, I'm not saying they appear to be less spiritual, but I really look up to the people who have been around doing one thing, or not necessarily, God may call people to do different things, but I do love longevity, and that's why our own pastors, Brian and Bobby Houston here at Hillsong, just been doing the same thing since I was pretty much, they came to Australia when I was born, 1978, and they've just been doing the same thing in Australia since that day. And I love that. That's a real, I guess, a quality that I really love in people, and especially in spiritual leadership and people I look to and admire. So, I mean, there's so many people who fit in that category, but that's really, really what I look for.
That's cool. I'm going to give a similar answer only because it's real, and that is the person I probably look up to the most, just in all areas, would be Craig Groeschel, and he is the lead pastor at LifeChurch.tv. And the reason why isn't what I love about Craig is that he's always inspiring, and it's because he's got the longevity thing, Dave, like you mentioned. But he also has, like many of our leaders or great leaders in our country or over history, is he is always pushing himself. He's super humble, and he's always pushing himself to grow and to be better. And with every step of that, every time he trips up, every time he learns something new, he then teaches that to other people. He likes to use his personal experiences to help other people grow, potentially not make some of the same mistakes that he's made, and to also continue to develop as leaders, not because he's necessarily competitive or wants to achieve, although those things are important to him, but because he wants to be everything that God has called him to be. He does not want to leave this planet without having maximized the gifts that God has put inside of him. And because of that, he constantly inspires me and the people around us. Although it sounds like the cliched answer to, say my boss, the truth is none of us probably would have stayed in our environments as long as we have had we not had amazing leadership over us. So You know, maybe a little cliched, but it's the truth.
I don't know if this is where you want to take it, but I'm just going to go there anyway. For me, when it comes to who do I look up to, obviously there's our senior pastors, which the first people I wrote down when I was thinking about it. But there's another guy in our church called Darren. That guy behind me, yeah, no, he's a gun volunteer. There's another guy in our church called Darren Kiddo. Now, Darren is he's the sort of guy, he carries whatever Pastor Brian and Bobby want to see happen. He oversees a lot of our international ministry, our Hillsong TV, and all this kind of stuff. The reason I look up to him so much is because he's faithful with another man's vision to the point where it's become his vision. And for me in ministry, that's key. I don't feel I'm called to plant my own church and be senior pastor of my own church, but what I'm called to do is get the vision of my senior pastor and our lead pastors, Joel and Julia here in Australia, and go, how do I make that not just their vision that I outwork, but how do I make that my own vision? So I love chatting to Darren Kiddo. If I'm stretched to the point where I feel I'm going to break, I'll have a coffee with Darren and I'll be like, mate, how do you juggle so many balls at the same time? How do you sacrifice? How have you done what you have done and kept a pure heart? Because like you say, Andy, it's not about a title or a position or something you want to attain to, but it's about having the right heart and being who you're called to be. And the ability to carry someone else's vision is huge. When I first became the kids pastor, Julia Bell, who was the children's pastor before Dave and I, she said, Nathan, can you be a kids pastor for the rest of your life? And I sort of fell into kids ministry like many of us do, and I was like, I don't know about that. And I went away and prayed about it, and God's like, if you can't do this for the rest of your life, if you can't see this as what you're called to do for as long as you're called to do it and not be waiting for something else, then it will always be a stepping stone. So I guess for me, it's when you get involved in something, whether it's another man's vision, put it on your heart, or God did it himself, make it your vision. And that's key to actually living a life that other people look up to.
So Nate, what's the pitfall of building your own thing? Like, what have you seen? Where does that fall apart when you're inside of somebody else's vision, but you're kind of doing your own thing? We've talked a lot about that in the past. I mean, what does that look like? How have you seen that play out? Maybe not specific names, but just the concept itself.
Yeah. Look, the Bible's really clear that where there's unity, God commands a blessing. So for me, if I want to operate under the blessing that God's got for our church, for our leadership, I need to actually operate in line with that. I would be ridiculous if I thought I could go out and start Nathan McLean International Ministries and be successful and go do my own thing. I'm very much know that everything that I've got in terms of what I'm operating out of is the anointing that's on this house, that's on Hillsong Church, that God's put on Brian and Bobby, and they've delegated down to Dave and I with the kids ministry. So for me, there's more success and there's more wins in doing something in line with what your senior pastors are wanting to do. I've had kids pastors on my team that felt frustrated and they were just working so hard, never getting recognition for what they were doing. But when we got down to it, they were doing their own thing at times, not necessarily focusing on what we're focused on as a church. So when I chat with you, Frank, one of the things we talk about is your role as children's pastor is you'll go to different campuses each weekend and you'll check out how things are going. That's not what my senior pastor wants for me. I'm based at our Hills campus, and out of the strength of Hills, I lead all the others, but they don't want me traveling to every different campus, and that's what they want. So I can try and be like you, Frank, and go, that's unbelievable, because I think there's huge value in that. But I've got to be true to what's on our church and what we've been instructed to do in that regard.
Yeah. Man, that's great. Any other comments around this question of either who you look up to or pitfalls of getting sideways in that?
You know, I just want to make sure that as people watch this conversation, hopefully, that they recognize there is nothing wrong with looking up to someone. It's great to have mentors. You know, it's great to have people that you look at and you say, whatever it is that God's done in that person, I want to not emulate that person, but I want to be that connected to God. And I think Nathan said something that was brilliant. When you sat down with the guy for coffee, you asked him not how do you do the things that you do so that you could be just like him, you asked him, how do you think? How do you process information? How do you make decisions? Not what decisions did you make? And I think those are some great questions as we're looking up to someone or choosing a mentor to help us through this journey, particularly for young leaders who are starting out. Man, yes, identify those people that you think in 5 years, 2 years, 10 years, I'd like to be where they are. Make sure that it is your thing. You're operating inside of the vision of the organization that you're a part of. Or if God's calling you to a unique vision that's outside of your organization, then be in step with what God's calling you to. Don't try to live out your vision inside of your current organization. But man, just be diligent to ask the right questions to get you where God wants you to be, as opposed to trying to follow in the footsteps of someone else per se.
Yeah.
And if we've always got this mindset we're waiting for some other opportunity, then we're never going to be faithful with what's in our hand.
Exactly.
Now in church life, I'm doing multiple roles, but that only ever came when I got to that point where I could be a 7-year-old kids pastor and I would be pumped. And now other roles I'm doing, someone the other day said, what do you want to see next? I'm like, I don't see next in position. I see next as in people I can influence, people I can build up, people I can empower to be all they're called to be. And in that, position will grow naturally. Don't focus on the position, focus on the people, and everything else will take care of itself.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
It's funny that there's nothing wrong with the guy that I was looking up to in that vision. In fact, one of them was he's mentored me for, we spoke yesterday. He, up until a month ago, he actually came back on. He started Kids Are Us. He's now served as my state leader. He served me for the last 2 years, and incredible, humble guy. He's incredible, but he is. So for me, absolutely, I agree. There's nothing wrong with having mentors, having people you look up to. I mean, he has navigated me through some difficult times in ministry and in life. So I'm so grateful for him. So I think it's good.